Paras. I would request Dr. Isha, who is substituting for Dr. Parul Jain, who was unavailable, to give us a talk on viral epithelial keratitis. Isha is a young budding ophthalmologist from Guru Nanak.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Isha Gupta, and I'll be giving an overview on viral epithelial keratitis. On behalf of my mentor, Dr. Parul Jain, I would like to thank her and Dr. Uma ma'am for giving me this opportunity to present in front of the stalwarts of ophthalmology. So as we all know, viral epithelial keratitis is the most common cause of corneal infection in the world. The virus can affect individual layers of the cornea, or in more severe forms may involve all the layers. Amongst the various viruses causing keratitis, the three most common ones are herpes simplex virus type 1 and type 2, varicella zoster virus, and adenovirus. Beginning with herpes simplex virus, the most common cause of viral epithelial keratitis is HSV type 1. Typically presenting as a unilateral disease, the bilateral involvement is a rare manifestation. Acquired during childhood, often through direct contact with infected secretions like saliva or ocular secretions from an individual with an active orofacial or ocular herpes infection. It is the leading cause of blindness worldwide. The global incidence is around 1.5 million yearly, including 40,000 new cases that result in severe visual impairment. However, the data on exact prevalence in India is limited. A study in South India found that 7.8% of the patient had herpes simplex virus-induced keratitis, while another study in North India estimated the incidence to be 33.3%. The infection usually begins after gaining access to the cornea via the trigeminal nerve from an oral infection or direct contact from infected ocular secretions. The primary infection is usually asymptomatic, or it may manifest in the form of acute follicular conjunctivitis. Once the primary infection settles, the virus establishes a latent infection in the trigeminal ganglion, following which there is reactivation leading to recurrent herpes. So as I said, after an initial ocular or oral infection, there is retrograde transport of the HSV virus into the trigeminal ganglion, where it establishes a latent infection, and on reactivation, there is anterograde transport leading to a recurrent infection. The risk factors for reactivation of the disease are many, like sunlight exposure, fever, trauma, heat, menstruation, and stress and immunocompromised state. The clinical manifestations of HSV keratitis can be broadly classified into epithelial keratitis, which includes dendritic or geographic ulcers, stromal keratitis without ulceration, which is also called as non-necrotizing or interstitial keratitis, stromal keratitis with ulceration, also called as necrotizing keratitis, and endothelial or deciform keratitis. The primary herpetic infection usually begins as formation of vesicles or blisters on the eyelids, and mainly there is inflammation of the conjunctiva, whereas the corneal involvement is less commonly seen. As we can see in the pictures below, there is staining of the conjunctiva in the form of conjunctival dendrites. The recurrent HSV epithelial keratitis usually begins as a superficial punctate lesion. These lesions then coalesce to form an dendritic ulcer, which eventually lead to formation of a geographic ulcer. So the earliest lesion is a fine or coarse granular spot forming punctate epithelial keratopathy. With progressive destruction of the Bowman's membrane, a dendritic ulcer forms, and with a gradual coalition of the dendritic ulcer, there is formation of a geographical or amoeboid ulcer. The ulcers can be very well delineated using various types of corneal stains. The bed of the ulcer usually stains with the fluorescent stain, while the swollen corneal epithelium at the edge stains with the rose Bengal stain. There have been studies in the past that have studied the microstructural changes occurring in the epithelium during active epithelial keratitis. In a primary herpetic infection, the corneal epithelium usually shows large number of clear vesicles and several faintly visible small focal lesions, as we can see in the figure. In a recurrent infection, in addition to the vesicles and smaller focal lesions, larger lesions containing clearly visible abnormal or swollen cells can be seen. The main sign that can differentiate a primary HSV infection from an adenovirus infection, although the clinical picture looks a bit similar, is the early presence of epithelial foci and ulcerative features in the HSV infection, which are not seen in adenovirus infection. Often a dendritic ulcer can be confused with a pseudodendrite, and the etiology of the two is different. A dendrite is caused by herpes simplex virus, pseudodendrite is seen in varicella zoster infection. So when we observe them clinically, in a dendrite there is branching pattern with terminal bulbs, whereas in a pseudodendrite the terminal ends are tapering. Also, the skin vesicular rash associated with the herpes simplex infection usually affects the lids, while the rash seen in varicella zoster infection affects the V1 dermatome, resolving with scarring. Another manifestation of viral epithelial keratitis is the neurotrophic keratopathy, which arises from an impaired corneal innervation combined with decreased tear secretion. This corneal anesthesia then leads to failed reepithelialization. On examination, the defect is usually oval in shape with smooth borders, and the ulcer has thickened borders with heaped up epithelium. So the treatment of a neurotrophic keratopathy is to stop all the unnecessary topical medications and start the patients on artificial lubricants along with one topical antibiotic. Gentle debridement of the edges can also be done to facilitate the epithelial healing. Apart from this, other managements that can be considered are use of bandage contact lens, conjunctival flaps, or tarsorrhaphy. So, diagnosis of HSV keratitis is usually clinical. However, conjunctival scrapings, impression cytology specimens, scraping from the vesicular skin lesions may also be tested by cytology, culture, or PCR for the presence of HSV. A Zank smear can reveal multinuclear giant cells and intranuclear eosinophilic inclusion bodies. Management usually includes topical antiviral therapy, systemic antiviral therapy, epithelial debridement of the dendrites, or use of AMT, and surgery in cases of advanced cases. Before the discovery of antiviral agents, the treatment was included wide range of approaches like manual debridement, chemical cautery, antiseptics, or antibiotics. However, there was first evidence of clinical benefit for newly synthesized antiviral idoxuridine in 1962. Then, thereafter, multiple trials, including the HEADS trial, have been done for treatment of HSV keratitis. HEADS comprises of two parts. HEADS 1, which includes herpes stromal keratitis not on steroids, herpes stromal keratitis on steroid treatment, and HSV iridocyclitis receiving topical steroids, whereas HEADS 2 includes HSV epithelial keratitis and acyclovir prevention study. The use of antiviral therapy for HSV has been supported by clinical trials. FDA-approved topical formulations include trifluridine solution 1%, cancyclovir gel 0.15%, and acivir ointment 3%, whereas systemic formulations include acyclovir, valacyclovir, and famciclovir. Steroids are usually contraindicated in active HSV epithelial keratitis because if they are used, they can lead to conversion of a dendritic ulcer into a geographic morphology. Few words on adenoviral keratitis. It is usually caused by serotypes 8, 19, and 37. In stage 1, there is formation of early corneal vesicles that are barely seen on slit lamp. These lesions coalesce in stage 2 so that they become visible on slit lamp. In stage 3, faint subepithelial infiltrates develop besides the deep punctate keratitis. And in stage 4 is characterized by nummular opacities, which may be present months to weeks. Management includes artificial tears and cold compressions, topical steroids, and cycloplegics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Isha. Very well covered and in a short period of time. So I would like the panel to ask, given Dr. Ashok Sharma is also here, what is your favorite antiviral, acyclovir or ganciclovir?
I have been using the both, but acyclovir has been the earlier available. Now ganciclovir is also available. So nowadays we are preferring ganciclovir. Otherwise, we have more experience with the oral acyclovir. So when we come to the oral, still
You use
oral acyclovir.
Thank you. As you're setting up your slides, you can answer these questions also.